ref. That's he got the ball. Good morning, Tottenham fans around the world, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys, Dave, Drew, and Steve. We will be joined by a few more as we go on. But look, we're all here today as we make our trip to the Molyneux, and we're going into the Wolves then, and hopefully we can beat them. That'll be absolutely brilliant. Away game today. Our away record has been atrocious. We're going to talk about that because we really need to rectify this today, heading into next Thursday, because that's the end of the game. We need to get a result away from home. So, look, I know a lot of people are maybe viewing today's game as a dead rubber. However, I still think it's an ideal chance to be able to win a game, build some more momentum heading into Thursday night. So, look, I didn't bother making, the injury graphics and that for today. Honestly, I had so much to do yesterday. I was busy, but yesterday, so I didn't get around to it. But we'll just welcome a few people in at home, and then, we will crack on. I want to say a massive thank you to Ryan Trestan. Says, big up, brother. Big up, Dave and Jacko. 3-2 losing. Can't see any more points picked up from now to the end of the season. What you both having for breakfast? Absolutely not. And I'm not a big... the only time I'll have a breakfast if I'm really hungry and I want to fry up rhino. Apart from that, I actually prefer to have like my cereal in the evening, like Cocoa Pops or something like that, to be honest. Big up Brian Timlin as well. Great to see you. Says, I'd like to see Gray get a run out today in midfield. Absolutely fair. Big up Soren. Good to see you. Man, it's going to give me a headache today, Soren and Drew. You be mixing up between them. When one's not here, I always call them the other. Big up DB. Good to see you,
sir.
We also have NJ123. Good morning, all. Good morning. Good to see you as well. Woodsy Hotspur. Great to see you. How's the weather up in Belfast today? A bit overcast here today, my man. We also have Sean Johnston in the house. We need a win today to carry us into Thursday night on a high. I'm confident, and we'll say 3-0 Spurs. Come on, absolutely love that. We've got K32 in the house. Good to see you, buddy. Hey, Dave and Jack and everyone else. We've got Wayne Francois 23. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, Wayne. Oh, great to see you in the chat, my man. He says Cooney is a real threat today. Absolutely spot on. Big up Jack Bloom as well. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Luke, I did get your message on Twitter and I DM'd you back, my man. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Noel O'Sullivan, great to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Noel, great to see you, my man. And then we've got HD Sharp. I'm not bothered about this game. Means nothing. As long as we don't lose, that's what matters. And then we have Elton McAleer, big up from New Zealand, boys. Good to see you, Elton. I'm getting that right. Like Elton John, am I correct? Let me know, my man. Good to see you. And then we also have Fox on the Hill, Prince. Only Son, Madison, and Porro in our entire squad have more assists in the Premier League this season than Edison, the Man City goalkeeper. And then we have Tottenham Tom. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, Tottenham Tom. He's always here. And then we have Alan Leslie. Morning, everyone. Not optimistic about this afternoon, but hopeful. 2-1. And then we have Breck on, and he says, big up Dave, Drew, and Steve. I'm hoping a win today will help create some momentum for you for our second leg against Frankfurt. Absolutely spot on, my man. Brecken, we need a massive look. I've got to get into it. But the away form is quite poor. I've got stats, as well around it, just to maybe put it out there that I'm not making it up, and then we'll have a conversation off the back of it. No, man, great to see you again. Just a warm up for Thursday. No injuries is the main result. Absolutely spot on. And then we also have Paddy Villa in the house. Big up, lads. Let's get a win and get momentum going into Thursday. Come on, you Spurs. And then Team Harris checking in as well. Why won't it let me click on? Sorry, Team Harris. It just will not let me click on your message for some reason. There we are. Big up. Oh, Jesus. It's starting today, isn't it? Big up, Team Harris checking in. We won't win this. You know exactly how it will go, but we will probably draw. I expect us to concede first and Johnson to equalise. Maybe stick a sneaky fiver on that. Kerry King says, morning. Not sure how I feel about today's game. Really, not sure I've ever felt so disinterested in the Premier League. I think I've seen a lot of that sort of reaction around. Kerry King, you're not the only one. And then Faz Radfar 4-1 Spurs. Big up my favourite channel. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. And then Molar, great to see you. Can't see this being a good day for us. So look, what I will say is my whole lifetime against Wolves usually is a bit of a tough game. They always give us a good game. It's not going to be easy today. And with the rotations, I wonder how much of a drop-off in terms of what we've seen Thursday night, tonight, will there be today if we make heavy rotations. It'd be interesting. But look, let's start. I'm going to start with Drew. I know this one sort of irks you a little bit, Drew, but a lot of fans are calling today's game against Wolves a dead rubber and saying all that matters is Thursday. But is this the right mindset, or should we be aiming to win every game regardless of the bigger picture?
Yeah, mate, I've been saying it for weeks. People are probably bored of me now. Big up chat, big up panel. Good to see everybody. I don't know what's happened to Soren since we last saw each other. He looks 10 years younger. I look 10
Didn't
years
he?
older. So there we are. What are you
We'll
going
see
to
him
do?
on that program 10 years younger there, in
There
the
you
next
go.
couple of weeks.
But I tell you what, if we've got any aspirations of ever being anything other than a mid-table club, then we need to start knocking out 2 games a week, and we need to start being
Yeah.
confident about it. And I know this probably isn't the time for it, but it doesn't hurt to have that sort of mindset, right? I don't know, man. We're going to be complaining when it comes to the end of the season. There's no football to watch. So, regardless of how bad it might be now, I would say lap it up
Yeah.
because honestly, we're going to have a summer of all sitting here twiddling our thumbs. Nobody wants to watch the Club World Cup. I'm not in it, so I don't give a monkey's. Right? Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. These are the sort of games I live for, boys and girls. Chat, Sunday afternoon, away to Molineux. To Wolves at Molineux. I mean, could you ask for any more? Let's go. I'm here for it.
No, and you know what? You're absolutely spot on there.
It
Over
means
this.
the world to me, dude. It means the world to me. We need 3 points today. That's all I care
Absolutely.
about. Like, we are
Absolutely.
business end of the season. I do not care what we look like. I want 3 points. I want £3 million on the table. Let's go.
And
Hell
that's another
yes.
thing, actually. You are looking at the prize money. You're looking at the
Yeah.
exposition as the prize money. I've seen you say that. And look, I think
Yeah.
probably the right way to look at it as well, to a certain degree. The higher we finish, the more prize money we get, heading into the summer transfer window. But you're absolutely spot on. I'll be the very first one moaning now, but then over the summer crying there's no football. I'll be the
I mean,
very
dude, I'm not.
first
How many Beyonce booking fees can you get for 3 million quid? You know what I mean? You know what I mean, boys and girls. Let's go.
one. You might even be able
That
to
would
treat
be
yourself to the NFL next year. Anyone else want to come in on that before we move on and start talking about our atrocious away record?
absolutely, man. There's only seven more games left in the Premier League table. 21 points are at stake. Right now we're what, at 37, an opportunity to finish the season on absolute fire. This is a perfect opportunity to kind of get back into the swing of things and finish the season on an all-time high. Today's 3 points is an absolutely massive 3 points as far as I'm concerned. As far as carrying that over into Thursday, but also having that carry over into the next weekend as well too. This is a match that you really can't take for granted. We've seen what happened. We've seen what happens when we just come in lackadaisical against Ipswich, against Leicester. I mean, these are the type of trap games that for this season especially, that we would just probably expect us to kind of drop an egg on the road. So you can't take it lightly.
No, absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. And look, at the end of the day, we do have to, especially if we want to keep getting Europe going forward, these players do have to learn to manage midweek and the weekend, and look, I just want to win the game of football. I do think winning breeds confidence. Winning gives you more hope heading into Thursday than if we didn't pick up today. So, not
Well,
rubber. We do want to go and win this game, which is absolutely good to see. Now, guys, I do want to get in and talk about the away form. Tottenham Hotspur have lost 5 of their last 6 games on the road in all competitions and have failed to score in 4 of those defeats. Spurs have also suffered 9 Premier League away defeats this season and only relegated Southampton with 13 and Leicester with 11 have a worse away record than we do. I mean, what do we think is the main reason behind Tottenham's struggles on the road? Is it a tactical issue, mental block, or something else? Because look, winning on the road is the name of the game Thursday. It's what we have to demonstrate, and our away record in Europe isn't good either. Away record at this football club has been piss poor for some time. So, I want to know off you guys. We'll start with you, Steve. What do you put it down to? This piss poor away record? Is it tactics? Many people would probably say it's tactics, or is it mental, or what do you put it down to?
I think it's a combination of attitude and attitude, injury, a combination of a few different things, right? I mean, yesterday, I brought up uh, the term players coach, right? The difference between an ultimate disciplinarian versus a player coach. A disciplinarian is going to demand certain things from their players at all times. where a player's coach is going to try to keep things loose, and we've seen these players on the sideline pregame just kind of laughing it up, hamming it up, not necessarily focused on their pre-match training. And I wonder if that has some kind of cause and effect of entering a game, whether or not they're actually focused to start the game. And we've seen this team get off to slow starts where all of a sudden within the first 10 minutes they concede, and all of a sudden they can't get back into the match for whatever reason, whether or not it's just hyper focus or not. And so from my perspective, I ask the question whether or not if there's if it's too loose prior to the match going into it and the focus is just not there.
Do you know what? And you're not the only one that sort of questions that as well, in terms of warm up, mentality and attitude heading into games. It does seem like sometimes that maybe they're far too relaxed, joking around rather than actually maybe being focused on the job. But I remember Conte, famously it was like 6 point something K used to get them to warm up in terms of running cover before the game. And I think maybe part of that was to try and eradicate that and get them focused. But even then, we started a lot of games slow. We conceded a lot of times the first goal as well under Conte. The amount of comebacks we had to do as well, guys. We let down to you, Soren, on this one as well. I mean, away form. What do you put it down to? Because it's shocking, and it can't keep continuing. Like, even if we want to try and compete for any trophy, we have to start showing the ability to be able to win away from home.
I think it's strange because, I mean, in the past, we've always done better sometimes away than we have at home, when we've had really poor home form. So I just wonder if it's more, a case of the tactics, the other teams are just sitting back more and breaking us down. And when you haven't got the crowd behind you as well, it just plays on your mind a lot more. But
could you put it down to tactics? I mean, Ryan here is blaming Ange for it.
You can put it down to tactics, but look, if we're going to blame Ange, I kind of get the argument that he sets the tactics. But I would say we've been more woeful since he's changed the tactics away from what we kind of assume is Ange ball, and sort of try to sit back a little bit more and defend and then break. But I just think we can keep blaming Ange. I think his time's limited now at the club. I'll be surprised if he's here for much longer into next season. Even I think it's winding down now. But I just think I don't know. I kind of wish he'd just stuck to his guns. I really do, because I think now we've started changing formations, changing tactics. We look as though we really don't know what we're doing, rather than we're getting played off the pitch now. And I know some people will argue that we've been played off the pitch for the last 18 months, but we've always kind of been in the game at some point. I mean, you look at Thursday night. I think we played really well. I think we had a really good game, and on another night that could have been 3 or 4-1, which is what a lot of us were saying. Just putting the chances away, but the chances probably aren't getting put away because there's a lack of belief in this game. And you look at that was more of what the football I expect to see under Ange, rather than some of the matches we've been playing recently, and it just doesn't look like anybody's been comfortable recently. Whereas on Thursday night, the whole team looked more comfortable. Everybody kind of put in a bit better performance. I mean, there were mistakes. There's no doubt about that. There's always going to be mistakes while you're watching Tottenham Hotspur, but no. I mean, I think the away form is just down to belief at the moment. I really do. I think if we can get on a winning streak, then we start winning away from home. But we just haven't got any belief in the sixth. Sorry, the dog's chasing the cat. We just haven't got any belief in anything at the moment. It's just an absolute nightmare, an absolute mess.
No, and look, I do understand what you're saying. Like, our home form hasn't been the best at times this season either, and I do agree with you that winning breeds confidence, and then you go into these away games with a lot more confidence. I do agree with you on that one. But it's just been poor for so long. And, when we go away from home as well, we especially in Europe as well, we tend to get rattled by these atmospheres rather than actually sort of enjoy the occasion. And I wonder, do we look at it wrong? Going out there nervous, worried about the what ifs, rather than actually go out there and sort of enjoy the occasion. Like, I'd argue in the squad, I don't think we have one player that actually relishes playing away from home. Usually in squads, you can see players that, step up a lot of times away from home. They absolutely love it. You're silencing the opposition crowd. But I'd argue, I don't think we've got any of them players in the squad that genuinely enjoy it. I think when they go away from away from home, it's just my opinion. I think their heads are already down going into the game, knowing about the record, how badly we fare away from home. And I just wonder how we're going to change it at this point, because it's something that, has been a problem for a long, long time. I mean, Dermo, we'll bring you in on it. Have you anything you want to add to that on the away form?
I just think it's been.
No, can I just quickly say on that though, Dave? Don't forget, a lot of the players that went away into Europe and kind of crumbled were the young lads that have never been in that atmosphere before. They have now. They've done it 2 or 3 times now, so we could see a difference. Sorry, Dermo.
Yeah, no, spot on. Go ahead, Dermo.
I think I think our away form comes down to 2 things: injuries and inconsistencies. And I think if you're winning away from home, is your main point is to get a point away from home. That's your main goal. You win your home games and you get a point away from home. I feel with all the injuries we've had and the inconsistencies of different players and Ange trying to change it up, I think we haven't really had any sort of foundation to go into. And once you lose one away game, you lose your confidence. You lose another. Your confidence then gets dealt another blow, and you start losing another. You can't just blame it all on Ange. I think it's been a combination of everything. And I think playing Thursday night and Sunday night, I think some players can't do that. And I would love to see people that say, oh, it's Ange's fault. I'd love to see you all play Thursday night and Sunday night. Do a week's training, so see how you do it.
Correct.
Because it
isn't that the whole idea about training is to get you ready for like Thursdays and Sundays, though? Sure you're ready to go for it.
It is, but if you're playing with the same squads, with the same group of players, week in, week out, you're gonna get tired, and at some point, something's gonna give.
Right.
Now, it's not an excuse for Ange, but I'm just saying, blaming it all on Ange, I think it's a bit unfair. I think you got to look at the bigger picture and look at all the different things in that picture where it can all contribute to what we're facing. But it isn't good enough, and you are right, Soren, as well. Our home form hasn't been good enough. This season hasn't been good enough, but it's been one of them seasons where everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So I think I think we're really at the end of the season. I think we've got to look back on it and think, yeah, it's been one of them seasons. Dust ourselves down and we start again in the summer. And that starts with getting the right players in to help improve this squad. If Ange stays, then you back Ange to the hilt. If Ange goes, then you back the new manager with the players he wants. But I think it's just been one of them seasons, and I've seen many of them. And this is the worst I've ever seen. You get to the point where you just go, look, you just got to dust yourself down and move on. That's all you can do, in my view.
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on. And what was I going to say? I had a follow up on that for Drew there off the back of what Dermo was saying. I need my water in the mornings. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, the interesting thing though is, Derma's absolutely right. I mean, you and I, Dave, have talked about the quality and the drop up of the talent from the first team to the second team. And when you lose 7 of your starting 11, the guys that are coming in, and we know that they're championship level, and there's no consistency or continuity because they don't play together. And all of a sudden you're asked to go to Chelsea, you're asked to go to Liverpool, you're asked to go to some of the most hostile environments in the Premier League, and asked to go out there and get a point. It's a tough task. It's a tough ask to do.
No, 100% it is. 100% it is. And I wonder how much of it comes down to not having the proper leadership within the squad, or in terms of on the football pitch. I wonder if we had better leadership, would we fare better away from home? I mean, Drew, feel free to come in on that, and everyone else, if you feel like you want to hammer home on it.
It sounds like I'm flogging a dead horse and just going over old crap. So I mean, I'm not going to harp on about it, but I just don't know that what we've gone through this season. I just don't. I think people are being a bit flippant about it. People are like, okay, well, they're fit now, so just play, just like figure it out. And I don't think you can underestimate the fact, like the likes of Bournemouth. All right, they've had their own injuries. I get that. The injuries have been two different players in different areas of the pitch that haven't been as drastic as ours. Their starting 11, starting 14, essentially, has got 3 or 4 months of being a cohesive unit that we don't have. We were literally half a dozen players on the training field, like passing 3-foot passes to one another while the rest were on the treatment room. Like, you can't get that back in a couple of weeks.
Like that
You know, I mean, what's that? You know, like we can't. Yeah, it's just the one thing I'll take from the last couple of games. And all right, the performances haven't been amazing, but the one thing you can say about Thursday, and the one thing I think I mentioned to Steve on his show the other day, the one thing I am seeing is players beginning to learn how to play with each other again. Like, I was just looking at Christian Romero's stats. He's only played 16 games this year. You don't get that back.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? So he's essentially 3 or 4 games into his season now, like just starting to get back into it. He's just starting to remember, oh yeah, I play with Mickey van der Ven. Like we all forgot about that until they both started again the other day against Chelsea. The squad has been absolutely decimated. And I guess the problem that I've got with it, big picture, is that basically I've just got to come to the conclusion that we can no longer have a bad season. Like, basically, if we, regardless who we've got managing, who we've got playing for us, if we drop from, I'd guess, what is considered to be where we should be in the league, like if we have a dodgy season where we finish 10th, we're just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just start everything all over again.
That doesn't come from the fans, though, really, does it? You know, that was a culture that, like, in fairness, was brought in by football clubs, because the minute things go wrong, they sack managers now rather than giving them time to work through it. You know, is that, like, you know, and I do get what you're saying, but is that not maybe, you know, fans following what the clubs have been doing for quite some time now?
What you mean? Just what? Like,
I get
getting
what you're
fed up
saying.
with it and just. No, I mean, I get
what
it.
you're
I mean,
saying in
obviously,
terms of there is no patience anymore, and that's not just in
right,
Spurs fan base. That's in every fan base. As soon as things go wrong,
right.
you know, the board sack a manager and bring in another guy. So, you know, there is no patience or there is no loyalty through a bad season anymore. But my point is, I think that comes from the football clubs, because as soon as things go wrong, even if it's on their end, they sack the manager and make him take blame
No,
for it.
absolutely. Yeah, no,
I think fans have
can.
sort of picked up that, you know, from football clubs making them decisions.
It's become a culture. It's become a
Yeah.
cultural thing. Yeah, basically, yeah. There's so much money in the game now, and because we have to be in Champions League and have to be here and have to be there. Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely take that point. But that, I guess, I don't know. I have to. I don't know, I can't just sit here and just say, well, I feel like there's another way of doing it. I feel like a little bit more patience, a little bit more pragmatism, a little bit more, okay, look at the bigger picture. This hasn't quite worked. And do you know what? If it gets to the end of the season and the big people in the big boardroom decide, do you know what? The reason it's not working is Ange Postecoglou, and they decide to sack him and we get somebody else, then it is what it is. C'est la vie. Sorry about it. And I'll back the next guy.
Yeah.
But the problem is, and I think we've harped on about it on this channel, you've said it yourself, Dave. I mean, how many managers have we changed in the last 4 or 5 years, and what's actually changed? So maybe having a little patience and maybe seeing something through, because in my mind, because of the way last season finished, because of the injuries, because of the lack of squad depth, I think in my mind, he's not been given a truly fair crack of the whip. So
Yep.
I don't know, man. I ain't got the one thing I don't have the patience for is to start all over again. Do you know what I mean?
Look, and the reality is, I actually don't. Even the most Ange out, I don't think wants to start over again. But unfortunately, we keep finding ourselves in this cycle, in this situation, where things get so bad and so toxic from all aspects. Inside the club, outside the club, etc. That it
Right.
almost feels like we are on a journey of starting again. But I think everyone agrees. Keep hiring and firing managers is not the right solution at some point. There has to be a recognition within the club. Like,
Right.
okay, Ange, we got our recruitment wrong. We're going to keep you. We're going to give you better recruitment. But I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Well, we're not just hiring and firing managers. Like, we got a new CEO now. That's another person up on boardroom level. Like, here's the thing. Like, who's actually calling the
probably more
shots?
boardroom
Do you
people
know
than
what I
players
mean?
now at this point.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? They could probably put out a decent starting 11. Like, we've got. Like, I still don't quite know whether Paratici's got his left leg in or his left leg out.
Is that
I
the game
don't
the other
quite
night?
know. I don't quite know exactly what Langer's doing. Like, is he going for young kids while Paratici looks for more experience? We've got the new guy Venkashekam. Like, what level does he come? Is he above Scott Munn, now overseeing Scott Munn? Is he coming instead of Scott
Yeah.
Munn? Like, there's just so much. Like, I don't even know from board level whether the left hand knows how to clap the right hand. So if that's the state up there, that trickle down effect has got to be like. I feel
Well,
like some
you know
people
the
in that club
expression,
are
right?
just
Too
sitting there
many
looking at
cooks.
each other like, what are we doing here? What are we actually doing here?
Honestly, it'd be interesting to see how that one goes, actually, because there are a lot of reports or suggestions coming out that maybe Scott Munn is under a lot of pressure, and that he could end up basically, towards the end of the season, sort of being turfed out, and that this guy will come in because their roles are similar, but the job titles are slightly different. But I do know that this guy, he's got a long commercial history behind him. He is the one that did bring Adidas to Arsenal, the sponsorship. Maybe my dreams might come true and get Adidas sponsorship back at Tottenham. But this guy, so there is a lot of people saying he'd be good for the football club. That he will put the motions in place for the director of football and the manager to really work. But I just worry that we were more attracted to the commercial history of his jobs in years gone by rather than, him actually being here for the football side. But it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. Faz Rafar 4-1 Spurs says, with changes in lineup, we can only win 4-1 today. Look, just get a win. I don't care how it happens today, my man. I just want to win today, Faz Radfar. Be interested to see how we get on because, I think automatically now we're at the point where, and this is in general, this is the same under Conte, Jose. Soon as we make changes, everyone just thinks we're going to lose. That's not normal. If we want to be a big club, we want to go and challenge. We should be able to make changes and still pick up results, especially if we want to compete in Europe moving forward as a football club. We have to demonstrate that ability. Big up Faz Radfar. I really appreciate the support. We've got this from Wembley 1. Good to see you, Wembley. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. This season is the end product of a long-term weakening of our squad that has been amplified by the coach's horrendous tactics. I feel for us next year. Do you know what? I sort of, to a degree, I sort of agree with the first point. I think, look, everyone knows I tried to raise my concerns about selling Harry Kane, the gap it was going to leave, where this club could head, which I said bottom half of the table if you let this guy go, because I don't think we've got the other players to step up around them. Now we had the opportunity in the market to buy players to so we don't feel that pinch as much. We didn't go out and sign a lot of the right players over a number of windows, which I think is a huge problem as well. It's just not good enough, Wembley 1, in terms of recruitment. It's nowhere near ambitious enough. Even the 65 million we spent on Solanke, it's a lot of money. But surely we can spend that 65 million a lot better than what we did, Wembley 1. And, for me, I just think the recruitment is absolutely piss poor. I made a point, I think it was on one of the boys' challenge there, over the last couple of days that, when it comes to recruitment, we're just solely operating off a data-led scouting model Whereas the bigger clubs that we're trying to catch, yeah, they've got stuff like that in place where they do sign players like we do, but they also recruit not just off that. They also recruit players that they know and stuff like that. We don't do that, and there is an element that we need to combine the two in order to really push forward. Because I'm not being funny, you don't need a data-led scouting model to throw you up one of the best players in the world, or you know what I mean, like that. You should already know who these guys are. The data-led scouting model should be for like the Venezuelan league, where you don't know that, but you see stats and that flash up, and you go, right, we'll go and have a look at them, use it as an indicator. Shouldn't just solely be recruiting off it, though. And look, the tactics, it's hard to argue that they've worked. I would argue I think they would have worked a lot better if we would have brought in more clinical forward players that actually know how to put points on the board, not just huff and puff. I think, we would have seen a much better product to a large degree. I think where this has been let down is selling Harry Kane, not replacing him properly, and not having that killer up front, that match winner up front. I think it's absolutely killed us to a large degree, because I think last season, even when the tactics were working to a certain degree, we didn't have the killer instinct to kill teams off. And I think slowly since then, when you don't have that, you lose games of football. And then all of a sudden, the players stop believing in the tactics, stop believing what you're asking them to do. And that's why we enter a situation where we are now. And that's why I keep going back. You can't just keep bringing in a manager and expecting him to be Harry Houdini and go and win a Premier League. You have to match it up with recruitment. You fucking have to on the next one. But big up Wembley, my man. Really appreciate the support, buddy. And then we've got this from PH Family, which I want to throw out to the panel here. And we'll start with Drew, because I think this is a retort to maybe what Drew was saying about maybe, sticking by the guy and heading into next season. He says, do the panel honestly believe Ange has the ability to turn this around and have a proper, decent season next season? I personally don't think he's good enough. And look, I will caveat onto the back of that. I think that has to be done. If we are to have that, we have to have much better recruitment alongside it. But we'll start with you, Drew. We'll let you have maybe your
Well,
retort.
I'll go really quick, because I think the other guys need to have a say. I think that if we had a fully fit squad and they had the time that was needed to learn the system, I believe that we would be a better team. And that might be my delusion, and that's just my own opinion. But if we hadn't been in the mire that we have been, I see this team being better. And that's what gives me the confidence to say, do you know what? If he gets another season, I'm all right with it.
How much better do you think it would be, though, Drew? Will it be marginally better? Will it be, top
I think
four
we'd
better?
I think we'd be.
That's a massive increase from everywhere this year.
I think we're comfortably top six. I do. I genuinely do.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything from any other teams to make me think that we're any worse than anybody else. I genuinely believe this season has been compounded by just injuries and having to have kids in key positions. Yeah. I just think if you'd have put any other team in our position, even that lot down the road, even Liverpool, I just think they'd be having the same arguments that we would be. So for me,
Liverpool had them injuries last year, didn't they? They did fall off in the league, but they did go on and win an FA Cup.
Yeah. I mean, arguably you could say sort of man for man. I feel like maybe they've got a slightly stronger squad than us overall. But yeah, you see the fall off. I mean, look at Arsenal. I mean, I know they blew Real Madrid out the water and it was a fantastic performance, but they just went and drew to Brentford. They haven't got anybody up front that can really put the ball in the back of the net. So I don't know, man. In my mind, and people can say what they want. I don't care. I just think if you take all of the issues away, and Vicario, Van der Ven, Romero, had all played 30 games this season instead of 15, I think we'd be in a better position. But yeah, it's just me.
No, fair enough. And you've given your reasons why. I mean, which I think is absolutely fair enough. Look, I think most people would, sort of shake hands with you on the fact that if we didn't suffer injuries this year, we probably would fare better. But I think where people's question mark comes in is how much better. And look, I question that with the squad as well. I question, another manager might do better, but how much better? I just think this squad needs a lot more surgery this summer going forward, regardless of who the manager is. I still think there's a lot of weak spots in this squad. But for me, the recruitment this summer has to be about players coming in and dislodging the players in the first 11, not coming in and providing more competition around the place. You know, in terms of when you sign them, you're like, could take him 6 months to get ready. Not having that anymore. It's got to be players for the here and now. But, you know, we will let everybody else in on what PH family has to say here. I mean, who wants to have a bite of this next?
I think, look, I think to answer to the question, yes. I think Ange does have the ability. Why? Because I know what Ange is about. We followed Ange, you, me, Dave, for what, 3 years before he came to Tottenham.
Don't throw me in here, Frank. You make your
No,
own.
I'm just saying we're both Celtic fans, so we know if you back Ange with the right recruitment, we know what he can do. And for the love of God, if I hear in the chat, oh, it's only the Scottish League, you still got to beat what's in front of you up there. You're not guaranteed to win the league. You still got to beat Rangers. You still got to beat Aberdeen. You still got to beat Motherwell. Yes, his European record wasn't great. But if you look at the players we have missed this season, I think you have a fully fit squad. We're up in the top four. We're qualifying for the Champions League. And I think it all comes down to the club not backing him properly in the summer. It's come to bite. It's firmly and truly back on our ass. The recruitment has been woeful. The money has been spent badly. And that everyone's blaming Ange and the players. But if you buy the right players for the right positions for assistant the manager wants, then you get decent results. If you're losing Romero, as Drew said, and Van der Ven, and half the squad for half the season, then you're gonna get bad results because there's not going to be no consistency. There's going to be no gelling of the squad. You look at any team that's doing what you look at Nottingham Forest, they haven't had as much as injuries as we had. They've had a consistent team playing game in, game out, and that's why they're up there in the league. Yes, we shouldn't have lost to Leicester. Drew at Leicester. Yes, we shouldn't have lost to them. Yes, we shouldn't have lost to Ipswich. Yes, we should with the games we shouldn't have lost 16 or 17 games this season. But if you're playing with a half-fit squad, players that are injured, players that are not good enough, and you're buying these players and they're not good enough, then what do you expect? And you can abuse. People can say what they want in the chat. Do you know? I would love to see how they would cope with it. None of us would. None of us, if we were all football managers and we had the season Ange has had, we'll all be struggling. We cannot say, oh, we will be this place because we haven't had the squad to do it, and we haven't been backed. They haven't backed him with the right players to do it.
Yeah, look.
So he's managing with one hand tied behind his back. So how can you expect a manager? If everyone was saying, right, Alex Ferguson back in the day was one game away from getting sacked. If Man United sacked him before the Nottingham Forest game and before he won his first FA Cup, would Man United went on to win all the trophies? No. It took him 4 years to get it right. Of right recruitment, right players, right structures within the club, and people doing what they're doing. Everyone gelling as one. We're not gelling. And then the fans are now disconnected from the team. The team's disconnected from the fans. The club's disconnected from the fans. There's protests, rightly so, about the ownership. And I'm not saying there should be protests. I'm rightly so, I said there should be protests. We're all disconnected. We're not all together. We're all fractured. And that just has a major impact on the players, on the management, and on the ownership as well. Because they think, why should we bother? The players are thinking, well, we're going to go out and lose anyway, so why should we bother? And you've got some players, I don't like this manager, I'm not going to try. So we're back. It's like a circle that we're never going to get off, and it's getting really frustrating.
No, look, I agree with you on some of it. I think, look, just to blame Ange, I do think is naive in terms of you look at Jose suffered in his second season. Conte fell off in his second season. Same thing's happening with Ange. So I think just to directly blame it on Ange is naive, in my opinion. There are things that we didn't get right underneath him in terms of our recruitment, 3 windows, last January, this summer, and January just gone. You look at the squad's needs and what we actually brought in, or the caliber of what we brought in to try and suit the squad's needs. I think most people can agree nowhere near good enough or ambitious enough from this football club. But at the end of the day, he hasn't helped himself, with the way he keeps going after fans. And that's where, you're starting to see no one give him any leeway. And that's his own fault. That's something he should be more clued into as an experienced guy, to use the media, charm it. That's what Jose Mourinho was famous for. Jurgen Klopp, you go back and watch that Amazon documentary, uses the media to build a rapport with the fans. And then when the times of trouble come around, they back him. They stand by him. Ange hasn't done that. When the fans have shown their frustration, he's showing their frustration towards him. You got Brendan Johnson the other day, and I'm not having a pop at him, by the way, but, he was saying about wanting to win the Europa League for the manager, the players, the staff. No mention of the fans, and I just think, is there a culture developing inside, from Ange Postecoglou's relations with the fans, that now it's sort of filtering down into the players? And at the end of the day, look, we could sit here and give all the reasons why it's not working out. The reality is, it's not working. And in football, it is so much cheaper to change the manager than it is to admit you made a mistake in recruitment and go and fix that when you're spending the money 30, 40, 50 million time and time again each position. It's so much easier to get rid of the manager. And I just think, look, if he didn't have a pop of the fans, I think many people would be sitting here today going, do you know what? Injuries does play a massive part, and we'll probably evaluate it a little bit more differently. But the fact that he keeps popping at fans, I don't think he's helped himself whatsoever. And that's where I think he's sort of made a rod off his own back. But like I said, I think it's naive just to sit here and blame Ange and say the next guy will walk in and get better out of this squad. People said the same under Conte. We had 2 years of Ange. It hasn't got better. And I can't help but cannot overlook this fact. And that's why I don't pin everything on the manager. I do think we have to take stock of other areas where where responsibility lays on other people's door. When Conte walked out of this football club, he told us we can keep changing manager. You can keep changing it. What difference does it make? He hammered the players. He sort of went after the club and stuff like that in terms of ambition and stuff like that. And I do think we're at the same point again. Yes, I take on point that Ange hasn't helped himself, to a large degree. But also we can't neglect the fact that these players also need to take a large portion of responsibility. The recruitment team need to take a large part of responsibility. At the end of the day, where we are at with this ownership, we're stuck in terms of we are just hoping that a manager, whatever manager we bring in, can come in and make it work. But I do think that's where then the fans need to show a bit more. And if we really want it to work out, we do need to start demanding more out of this football club. Now, the protests are, happening right now, and I think they're a good thing if we can keep putting pressure, keep turning up in numbers. Hopefully you might start seeing a little bit more ambition with inside the football club, which I think then in turn will help your manager. But just to sit there and pinpoint Ange being the sole blame, I think is just very naive. And honestly, I think once he's gone, everyone else will start talking about, once the scapegoat's gone, all the other stuff will start to be highlighted. But I do understand why people, just can't give him a chance, because he does keep poking at them. I mean, Steve, Soren, do you want to come in and have your say?
Just go ahead, Soren. Go ahead, Soren.
I was just going to say, jumping back a little bit to what Dermo was saying. Listened to him for a few years now, and he's spoke some absolute shit sometimes. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, he starts saying absolute truths. Absolutely spot on with what you just said, Dermo. Fully agree with you. So I think you thought he was going another way then, didn't you?
I did.
No,
I
think. I mean, look, I've said it for a long time that I'll back Ange until the day he's gone. I've said it over the last couple of days, and that I don't know whether he'll last any longer. Doesn't mean to say I don't want to back him, but I don't think he's far off. Do you know, I think he's a couple of players away from probably being able to do what he wants to do at this club. We've all said that a monster number 6 in that team would absolutely change the team totally. And it would allow his system to work properly. we know he kind
Do you
of
think a
doesn't
striker
take
would
that role.
change? A proper striker would also, help him out massively.
Yeah, but do you know, when you watch what he doesn't rely on the striker he relies more on those wingers. It's about putting the goals in from the wingers. And when it works, you see Brennan Johnson coming down that side, and that's why he's our top scorer at the moment. And that's why Son is supposed to be integral to the system, because those two can score goals. There's a lot of things wrong with what the team is doing, but I think if we went out and got, say, 2 or 3 decent players in the summer, I think that squad could, I'm not going to say a challenge for the title, but it could certainly be back challenging for top 4, and it could certainly be somewhere about in the cups.
Them players have to be of a certain caliber though for that to happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But look, they don't have to be world beaters, though. This is the
Yeah,
difference.
I agree. Look, we're never going to get world beaters at
No,
Tottenham.
we're not. But I mean, saying people sort of slating, oh, Levy's come out and said that the signings in the summer. Look, I don't know where that source has come from. It's probably another one from the Mole or whatever.
Is
And
that from the
it's all
financial
about,
report? I think, where he said, we'll spend within our needs basically rather than.
yeah, but
I think
that
maybe
doesn't
people
mean
have took that as he's not spending rather than,
Exactly.
basically, I think he's saying, I'm not going to put any extra money in, basically.
Exactly. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you look at if we go out. I mean, there's the Cardoso lad. There's don't forget we've got the is it Vuskovic or whatever it's called coming in, the defender. There's a couple of players coming in. We've got the young lad that's out on loan. The Korean, is it Korean? He's to come in. Obviously Werner's going. Hopefully, there's some good players, and then you've got people like Bergvall, you've got people like Gray that have got another year under them. You've got people like Mikey Moore to come in that's got another year of experience. The team could do well. Get rid of Bissouma and bring in a decent holding player, or let Archie Gray have a go. We're not a long way away from it. And look, the thing is, you've got all these people, all the fans, or a lot of fans coming out saying, oh, we want Ange gone, we want Ange gone. That's the only pressure that's on Daniel Levy to get rid of Ange, because I think if it's up to Levy, I think he'll still be here next season. I don't think it's a case of if we go out the cup, he's gone. I think Daniel Levy will give him next season if there isn't that much pressure from the fans to do it. It's the fans that'll cause Ange to go. And look, we all know that you could bring in another manager and it could all turn around. It could absolutely work. Which manager? None of the fans can agree on which manager. You've got names being bantered about left, right, and centre. We've got Glasner at the moment. We've got Iriola. Nobody wanted Graham Potter. Could have come in. Nobody wanted Potter. So it's never going to be right. I mean, the only manager that I would see coming in and actually kind of uniting most of the fan base, because it won't be them all, is Poch. And Poch ain't coming back yet. I mean, he might come back in a year or two, but he ain't coming back yet. And you get another manager in, and all of a sudden you've got to start again buying players. And it just doesn't work. And I get the frustrations with, well, we're crap, but what happened to the argument? Well, we're not a big team. We're not a top 6 team. Oh, yeah, we are a top 6 team. No, we're not. Yes, we are. Well, we maybe aren't. That's the problem. And why aren't we signing this player? Oh, we don't sign them because they don't want to come to us. We're not a big team. Why haven't we signed this player? We're a big team. We should be signing that player. We went and got Archie Gray in the summer. Now, there was obviously a certain amount of money that we could spend in the summer. And the chance came to get Archie Gray. He was a player that we've been looking at for a year or two now. Now, we could have said, no, we won't want him. He could have gone to wherever because there were other teams sniffing. And yeah, we could have gone and bought a ready-made player. Doesn't mean to say he's going to work. So we've got another player for the future. This team is a young team being moulded. It's not gelling yet. It's not working fully yet, but it could do. And look, people call me delusional. People call Dermo delusional. That's fine. We want to be delusional for a change. So, are we not entertained? Well, yeah, the football hasn't been great, but I tell you what, I'm a lot more entertained under Ange Postecoglou than I was under Conte. A lot more entertained.
Let me know, people, if you sort of, if do you feel the same as Soren? Are you more entertained under Ange than Conte? I think it's an interesting point. But look, what I will say is as well is what, and we will go to you as well, Steve.
Yeah.
Is one of my biggest fears, about and one thing that keeps happening when we constantly keep changing managers. Players that haven't performed for a season then get another opportunity. We see that time and time again. Players that you think are out the door under a certain manager, a new manager comes in, gives them a massive opportunity. It was like that with Bissouma, right? Many people are at their ends when it came to, with Bissouma underneath Conte, and then all of a sudden Ange comes in, he gets another chance, he gets another 2 years out of it, and he still has proven he's not good enough. And I just think that's where my problem comes in. You keep changing managers, you're never ever going to fully develop a proper squad, because the reality is we can sit here and say, well, if you're bringing another guy with attacking ideals and that, it shouldn't be too bad to a certain degree. But we had three defensive managers, Jose, Nuno, and Conte, all on the trot. Different defensive systems, different type of requirements in terms of players. So I do think, if we do want to start challenging and we don't have the money of your Man Cities, we do need to take the Liverpool route. I don't want to say it, but the Arsenal route to a certain degree, where you do back a manager, you continue to develop that squad underneath him. It has to happen at some point. And I keep saying this, it has to happen at some point. But unfortunately, I think, these managers don't have the patience. The type of guys we're bringing in don't have the patience either. We got to remember that. These guys are used to winning. Soon as the shit hits the fan and they're being blamed for everything, they're not used to it. They're not used to it. But I do think that Conte hitting back at the fans has not helped or Postecoglou hitting back at the fans all the time when things are going wrong has not helped the situation, and will not buy the buy-in from fans to give them a chance next season. But anyway, Steve, sorry, I cut you across you there. We'll let you come on, man.
The answer to the question is 100% yes. And I think Ange is in an advantageous position if he delivers this message correctly. Because we've all seen seasons at the beginning of the season when you're looking at the roster and you can actually see the talent that's on this team. And if things break correctly, it's going to be an exciting season. But unfortunately, we had a catastrophic season, to the point where, Ange Postecoglou, if he delivers the message correctly this summer to his squad and says, hey, listen, remember those matches against Crystal Palace and Ipswich when you stepped onto the pitch and you had the superior talent and you had the tactical advantage, and we let that one get away. And that feeling of dropping points we had no business dropping. Remember those matches where you came back after a month of injury only to get re-injured 50 minutes later, and now all of a sudden you're on the sideline questioning whether or not you belong at this level. Remember that feeling and remember that emotion, and never let that happen again. Because these type of seasons are a bonding moment with teams. And I've been on a few teams myself where, for whatever reason, we had the talent, it just did not work out. But for whatever reason, the next year, we used that as a motivational tool to never let that happen again. And it changed the mindset. And it can definitely change the mindset of this club being, this club being a bottle job, or this club being, okay with losing and that loser mentality. But when you look at this squad, there are very good building block pieces in this squad that can help you win a trophy. Vicario, Udogie, Romero, Van de Ven, Porro, Kulusevski, Bergvall, Archie Gray. That core right there can help you win a trophy. And now it is up to bring in the right players, right, that have a chip on their shoulder. The Victor Gyökeres's of the world, whose knock on him was that he couldn't handle the English game, so he had to go to Portugal and he became a world beater. The Christian Pulisic, then, the only knock is that he's American and he has to continue to earn starting spots. Jonathan David, whose only knock is that he's Canadian and he can't play in Europe. Players that have a chip on their shoulder that want to come in and prove the naysayers wrong. Those are the type of players that you can bring in that will actually add to that group and galvanize and get this team moving in the right direction. And if these little incremental things can happen, absolutely, not only can this team turn around, but this team will be united behind Ange Postecoglou moving forward, 100%, if it's delivered correctly, if that message is delivered correctly.
Yeah, look, I think you raised a good point there. I do think there's a good nucleus there, to build off. It's just about bringing in the right players now to sort of build off that. And I think that's where, this has ultimately gone tits up to a large degree. We finished fifth last season. Massive opportunity this summer to build upon it. Brought in a lot of teenagers. This January, we needed help. We needed a proper proven striker or just someone with a little bit more experience. We go and get Tell to fill the void and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just our recruitment has not been good enough 100%. But I also sort of wonder, with the Premier League having the best managers in world football in it, I just wonder, is Ange at that standard? I think, you are seeing a lot this, in terms of this year, that he is being exposed more often than not. Like, don't get me wrong, when his football is played well and it works, it's great to watch. But that's been too and far and few in between this season.
Well,
Look,
when was Ranieri at that standard when he galvanized Leicester City to win a Premier League championship in 2016? You get what I'm saying? It's like even those that aren't considered at that level still can be successful at this level. Given time and also delivering the right message to his group.
No, look. I hear what you're saying. And look, me personally, the way I hear Ange speak in press conferences, there is a part of me where maybe he thinks he is assured of his position heading into next season. I'm not sure many fans, would be very happy with it. Look, like I said, I think for me, Ange's only saving grace is winning the Europa League. I think that's it. I think anything else but that, I think it is going to cost him his job. I just think fan pressure might play its part in the end in terms of, him end up leaving this football club. But I think if he doesn't win the Europa League, I think he will end up paying the price. But big up PH family, my man. Really appreciate the support, brother. We have Faz Radfar says, let Ange finish his work one more season, then judge. So that's where Faz Radfar is. He says he wants to give him one more season and see where we go from there. I think, though, Faz, if you're taking from people that have maybe lost a lot of faith in Ange, which, I think you have to fully understand it. I think they fear it'll get worse next season, and I think that's the big fear around it, that they fear, everyone fears it will get worse next season, Faz Radfar. So let me know your thoughts on that one. Michael George says, Dave, you're talking nonsense. He's rubbish. He has to go. He's done damage. He'll continue to do damage because he ain't good enough. No, look, like I've said, I think if he doesn't win the Europa League, Michael, I think it will cost him his job. But I do think it's naive to solely blame him. When people solely blame Conte, said the next guy will get better. I'm still sitting here waiting on what people told me was going to happen. It's 2 years now. It hasn't got better. And that's my point. We can keep just blaming everything on the manager. It's not going to achieve something. It's just scapegoating the club's problems. All of a sudden, no one has problem with recruitment, and barely anyone highlights, Levy's deficiencies anymore. It's all Ange. And I'll be honest, it's actually getting to the point where it's becoming the Ange Postecoglou show, and I'm getting quite fed up and pissed off with it. And that's from either side. Ange out, Ange in. It's fucking Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and what's best for it moving
100%.
forward. And I just think
100%.
being one or the other, shut up, don't question Ange, just be behind him. I don't think, is putting Tottenham's best interest first. But same thing, everything is Ange's fault, get him fucking gone. I don't think it's helping this football club. At the end of the day, I think everyone will agree it's all becoming the Ange Postecoglou show. And I'm sorry, but when I tried to say we shouldn't sell Harry Kane, people said to me, it's not about one man, it's about the football club. So, take your own advice that people were quite happy to dish out with me on the Harry Kane thing when they couldn't come and debate me, on the whole Harry Kane saga. They wanted to use all these quick wits because they weren't intelligent enough to debate me on the whole Harry Kane saga on why we should let him go and stuff like that. So the reality is, the football club is bigger than anything. And I just think just to put all the blame on one guy is naive. And I think to say shut up and just back him is also naive. At the end of the day, the football club is what matters, what's best for it going forward. Just quickly, Alex as well, more waffle from David. I mean, look, coming from the biggest waffler around, I mean, that's a bit of a stretch there, Alex. Look, what I will say is, let's get it done this week, my man. I've got a bit of time on my hands, let's get it done this week. But I would prefer you actually come in with a point on what we're talking about rather than just going waffle. I mean, You know, what am I supposed to say back to that? Actually, tell me what you think is, Waffle. I think that would be productive. We've got Q7 member for 7 months says, Ange's chaotic system is 2 top quality attackers away from having a team that could outscore teams. This system will always concede, but we would win more. Now, on this Q7, I'm just going to give a quick point, and we'll let I think Steve wants to come in on this one. I think he agrees with you. Is that I agree with you, and I've said this from the outset. You know, I think if we had a much better forward line in terms of, you know, like the amount of games we've lost by 1 goal this season, you know, in years gone by, you know, we've had Harry Kane who stepped up in them moments, put points on the board. We don't have that guy in this team now, and I do think if we had that guy and we had better standard across the front line in general, I genuinely think we would be better and we would win more games. Also, on the conceding the goals, people go on like this football club hasn't conceded goals for the large time they've supported this football club. They have. I'm sorry, the only year where we've had any resemblance of a bit of steel was under Pochettino. Under Conte, we conceded goals. Under Nuno, we conceded goals. Under Jose, we conceded goals. And under managers before Pochettino, we conceded a lot of goals. But the difference was we had really good wingers, a really good playmaker, and an unbelievable striker, if not a few of them. And they always went and scored goals and helped us win games that way. And I fully agree with you on that aspect. Am I sitting here saying we don't need to tighten up at the back? No, of course we do. Ideally, we do want to tighten up if we want to go and win. But everyone goes on about conceding goals. It's like we've always conceded goals at Tottenham, but we've always had great forward players, you know, to alleviate, you know, that sort of pressure that it takes on us in terms of the goals we've conceded. That's just my feeling on it. Let me know how people, actually, I'm sure Michael and Alex will let me know how they feel in the chat. Anyway, but Steve, on to you, my man.
Yeah, and by the way, like, you know, if you know Ange Postecoglou's history, he's always going to concede goals, right? There's always going to be 1 or 2 goals conceded. But that being said, his teams, you know, especially in his league winning seasons, have averaged 3 to 5 goals a game, right? So they blow teams out of the water with relentless pressure and pace. That's just the way that he plays football. Like there's always going to be conceded goals, regardless of how it is. But that being said, you know, when you have a team that consistently can put 3 on the board every single match, right? It becomes a little redundant. But that being said, right, you know, we talk about recruiting, you know, and you look at the talent and the quality that's in the back line and at certain times in the midfield, and then you look at the lack of quality in the forward attacking 3, and it's night and day, right? That's why sometimes we come out and we look absolutely disjointed. Right. So the idea of bringing in quality, it's not just because he's a 90-pound player that he's a good player. Right. It's also the mentality of the player as well, too. Right. The type of players that are going to not only fit the system, but also have that experience as well, too. Right. I prefer guys that have a chip on their shoulder, guys that have something to prove, guys that are going to be able to come in through the door on day one and sit there and look at somebody that has been there for 3 years and says, no, man, that's not how you play football. Guys that are going to demand better of the players that are here.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And I fully agree with that. Anyone else want to come in on what Q7 has to say there before we move on?
It's like I said, you know, a couple of decent players in. We're not far off. I mean, the interesting thing is, you know, people tell us that Ange is shit and we're not going to win anything, and then tell us the players we've got are shit and not up to the standard we need. And then we should be doing better with these players. If another manager had these players, we'd be winning the league. You know, I mean, which argument is it then? Because it's the same people saying the same shit every time. And look, you can't have an argument that fits every single scenario and be right on every single scenario that you're doing. So I think it's about time some of the people giving the arguments, same as they say to me, you know, had a little bit more, not what's the word, you know, got into the real world, because Tottenham Hotspur is not a league challenging team. We're a long way from that. We are a team that is probably, you know, I mean, going back when Conte left and the end of that season, and people were saying we're a mid-table team, and you know, if we finish 15th and we win a cup, well, that's still a scenario this season. And those same people are the ones that are shouting, "Get rid of the manager, he's not good enough." Well, we've been in a semi-final this year. You know, we were 1 game away from getting to a final. We didn't have a bad run in the other cups. We're in the quarterfinals of the Europa Cup. Yeah, the league form is shit, and I don't think any of us are going to defend it. But another comment that was in earlier that said, people like me that sort of still want to back Ange think we're better fans. So Daniel Harris, nobody's ever said that. I am not one of the people that claim to be a better fan than anybody else. I think you need to go elsewhere and find those people. So just
Look, no one's a better fan than anybody else. At the end of the day, right? It doesn't matter where we sit on the fence of our opinions. We're all here. We all love this football club. We're all passionate about this football club. We all want to get our opinions aired and, conversations about this football club, regardless of what side you sit on. We're all here. No one's a better fan than anybody else. We all give up, things or tell people we can't go places because we want to sit there and watch games and shit like that. And I think this is the biggest thing coming through this. Let's not attack each other. We're not the problem. We are not the problem. The fan base is not the problem. We don't influence, we're not in there making decisions. All we can do is put pressure on and put demands on the football club to try and do what we need them to do. But we're not the problem. And if anything, we're actually the solution. If we could all just get on the one page behind something, we can be the solution. And that's what, we got to stop going after each other. Q7, no, I got your point, man. Maybe you're on about someone in the chat, but I did get your point, Q7, and I sort of agree with you. It's something that I've been saying all season long, that, and in general, like, I think me and Soren have been having a massive back and forth, behind, not massive, but, we're always texting each other back and forth, behind the scenes about this, and I think we sort of came to a resolution the other night that maybe we replaced Harry Kane's in terms of the numbers, if you want to just look at the statistics, Soren, isn't that what you said? But we haven't replaced him sort of in terms of that mentality, his all-around game, what he actually offers to the squad, stepping up in them in them tight moments, in them big games. And I think that's what me and Drew settled on the other night, if I'm correct. But I do agree with you in general, Q7. I do understand.
Hang on. Dave, is it me or Drew? Because I want in this conversation. So, and then you just said Drew, and it wasn't me.
Oh, did I say you? Sorry. No, I mean Drew.
Yeah. Well, even without the beard, we look like each other, right?
I was going to say, I was like, when did I have this conversation? Damn, was I pissed?
No, sorry. I meant Drew. Honestly, I keep getting you mixed up. I don't know why. I just feel like you're stepbrothers or something like that, But
I'll tell you what, there was actually a screen grab a couple of weeks ago before he shaved himself down and everything. We actually did look like brothers, so don't feel too bad. And do you know what? I couldn't have a nicer older brother. I tell you that.
We do have a couple more chats here, and then I do want to get on, and I do want to talk a little bit about the mole and stuff like that as well. And also, I want to touch on the under-17 success the other day as well. Donovan Oosterreich, remember, for 29 months, big result for Ange tonight in the mixer. Sorry for the absence lately, just settled into my new place and job. We're one win away from a European semi. Look, you don't need to apologise, my man. We all have lives and we all have circumstances that come our way where you need to take time away to go and sort out that stuff. Never ever need to apologize, my man. Look, big result. Look, it'd be interesting. I think many people are expecting a lot of rotations today, so it'll be very interesting to see what sort of performance we can get out there. Look, I don't buy the excuse that if we make rotations, we should accept the loss. We should have, like, this the whole thing. If we want to compete and be serious, we should be able to make changes and still go and try and replicate what we're trying to do on the football pitch and go and win games. But look, let's wait and see, Donovan. What I will say is my whole lifetime, we have had tough games against Wolves. Under Jose Mourinho, I think Jan Vertonghen, what was that, a last-minute header? I think, back in the day when they had Mick McCarthy, Pav and Keemer up front, we struggled at times. What was it, not so long ago? I think, was this under Andrew Conte? I can't remember. But we were 1-0 up with like 2 minutes to go, and then they scored 2 quick goals on us. They do give us tough games, and I can't get that out of my head heading into today's game, Donovan. It's not going to be easy. They're also scrapping. I think they'll fancy beating us, and then they're more or less guaranteed safety now anyway, but beating us, they guarantee it. They'll be 15 points clear of the relegation zone, so their motivation will be there. I'll be surprised if they take their foot off the gas, but big up, Donovan. And then Levy Towers says, fact is, no manager will succeed with this ownership as they will not pay the wages for the players we need. However, Ange has to be more adaptable. This kamikaze football is not sustainable. And do you know what? I can understand what you're saying on that one, Levy Towers, to a certain degree. Look, I think you're absolutely spot on. And, I think this is a fair comment, that it it is hard for managers to succeed under this ownership. I mean, if Jose Mourinho and Conte couldn't make it work, what chances do other managers of a less caliber have to make it work? I fully understand that. And look, I think the overlap also done something the other day towards the end of the show where they mentioned the wages that Tottenham are spending. And they said, look, it's about right for what they're spending on wages where they are right now. You know what I mean? They need to spend more on wages. More wages means quality players and stuff like that. So, I think you're absolutely spot on. Like, I think we're spending less than 50% of our income on wages. I think we're one of the lowest in the Premier League. It's nowhere near good enough. There is scope there to bring in a couple of boys, but honestly, I don't think Levy wants to go over that 200,000 per week. You look at Son. I think the reason why he got an extension and not a contract renewal is because we don't want to break that 200K a week barrier. We don't want to break that wage structure. And any player that demands more than that, you'd argue they're probably sold and bounced out of this football club. Romero's also reaching that point, where we need to try and time down to a new contract. New contract's going to put him on well over 200 grand a week. Are we going to pay that? I'm not quite so sure. I think we'd be happy to sell. I don't think Daniel Levy wants to break that wage structure whatsoever, but I'd argue if we want to go and try and compete, it needs to be upped, but the kamikaze football is not sustainable.
I would...
Go
on, Dave.
Go on.
Dave, I would say just quickly, those numbers, not that I'm on any particular side of the numbers, but they are slightly skewed this year just because the revenue's gone up. We sold Kane. We paid off on Ndombele. So with the revenue going up and the wages coming down, that percentage looks even lower. And the one thing I think we can all be agreed on, I'm not a fan of pushing the boat out too far. I don't want to do an Aston Villa and be at like 97% threshold and be at risk. But you would like to think that in the summer, you could up that by 15, 20, 25% and at least be in the 60 to 65, 70% wage to, ratio. And that would go a long way to fill in a couple of, if you can. Here's the problem, right? We've fallen off so far that I think, unfortunately, we're in a position now where we're almost where we were before Poch came in. Like it's all. I think we've almost, like, in terms of capture and in terms of being a club that people look at and go, oh yeah, I'd love to go and play for Spurs. Do you know what I mean? Like Steve mentioned earlier, we're almost starting to look at people with chips on their shoulder that have got points to prove. Like, but yeah, if you could genuinely persuade, and maybe Paratici can persuade a couple of real big hitters to come and join the cause in the summer. Because, like I say, I think if you've got a couple of players that have been there and done it with cool heads on them, and they're not easy to find. Like, I mean, you look at the top 10 in the Premier League and count on, maybe two hands the amount of really classy, put the foot on the ball, slow the game down. Do you know what I mean? There's not many Bruno Guimaraes out there, so. Yeah. I think if you can push the boat out a little bit and get a couple of people on 200 grand a year and just up the quality in a couple of positions, I don't know, man. I don't think we're not an insanely far off. That's why everyone harps on about you can use the stat that we've only lost by one goal, and people want to throw that in your face. Well, it's still a loss. You can say we only lost by one goal, but if you actually go and break down the numbers on some of those games. And yeah, some of them we were a depleted squad. So some of those numbers, I mean, it does look like an absolutely shocking game. But go and look at the beginning of the season against Newcastle, against Arsenal. Go and look at the stats, because I know, as I say, you can skew stats and you can do whatever, and you can say this, that, and the other. Well, you're just using that to fit your narrative. But when you're losing 1-0 to Arsenal, but then you go and look at the numbers and you're like 600-700 passes to their, I think 200-300 passes. And like, you look at the game statistics and you're all over them. I mean, it's fine margins, right? A couple of £200,000 players in this squad, somebody up front that actually knows how to put the ball in the back of the net, and maybe a winger that can take on his man that isn't 32-year-old Sonny. If it was 27-year-old Sonny or insert name here, I just think things would be a little bit different.
Yeah. Can I add something?
I think there's merit to that. Yeah, go on. No, go on.
Sorry. I just want to add to this. It doesn't matter who's in charge. even if the next manager comes in and we're still in the same position, it's still all roads lead back to the ownership. All roads lead up back to the recruitment team. So it doesn't matter who's in charge. It could be Ange. We've had Conte. We've had two of the best managers of this generation have failed at this football club because they weren't backed properly. So I think it's an easy just to blame the manager. You have to blame the players. Dave, you hit it there about a few minutes ago. He said, we're back to where we were in the 90s. We are. We haven't been this low in a long, long time in the league. And I think some fans that don't remember, or some fans just can't accept it. They would rather blame everyone else but the main person who's the problem, and the problem is the ownership, because they don't provide the funds for the recruitment team to buy the right players for the manager. And that's where you're falling down all the time. Because if you don't buy the right players, you look at Liverpool, so Coutinho bought Alisson and VDV. What happens to go in and dominate? Everyone, it's the ownership. And look, it's taken me a while to get to it, but you can't keep blaming the managers all the time. The players, yes, they have to put in performance, but you can't just blame in one person where there's multiple of other people that should be taking responsibility for the failures we've had. And it's not just this season. Reaching the Champions League final papered over the cracks that were happening at the club a long time ago. And we've never fixed them cracks. And then cracks are getting bigger and bigger. So I think Levy has to take full responsibility for what's happening at this football club. Sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to cut across.
No. Look, I fully understand it. Like I said, I just think it's naive to pin everything one way or the other. My whole point is, look, is Ange becoming a problem? Yes, he is. If he doesn't win the Europa League, will he get sacked? Yes, he will. Does he deserve to off the back of 19, 20 losses? Yes, of course he does. It's hard to argue against that, right? But the reality is, I just think blaming him for all the injuries, blaming him for not getting better out of these players, etc., I think is a little bit naive. My whole point now moving forward is, Ange needs to take responsibility 100%. But also other people inside the club do, the likes of Johan Lang do, people like that. Whoever's in charge of, I think I was on last one of Spurs the other day, and Ricky Sachs mentioned about Scott Munn coming in. Part of his remit was to overhaul the medical department. We all started giggling because look at the state of it. You know what I mean? And it's just sort of like, if we really want the next guy to work in, and my whole point is around my whole argument with this, and I think a lot of people maybe get construed that I'm defending Ange, and I can fully understand how it comes across like that, right? But my whole point is, if we want the next guy to work out and we want to start fixing problems and, we want to start we need to start identifying the problems are. So when the next manager comes in and he falls into some of these same traps, we have more understanding around it and go, well, hang on, that's not his fault. That's not his fault, because I do think we are getting in the realms where we are using every manager as a scapegoat for every problem. He goes, then all of a sudden we think it's all going to be fixed. The next guy's going to come in and do better. But on that, if that's the argument people present with me, well, off what I've seen since Pochettino and the hiring and firing since Pochettino, that's also not going to happen. So at some point, I understand people that make the argument and say, look, I don't want to keep changing managers, but we have to now at this point. Fair. But going forward, like, people want Iraola in. Are we going to blame Iraola for everything that goes wrong when he arrives at Tottenham Hotspur? We can't keep doing this. At some point, we have to go, no, do you know what? Recruitment ain't good enough. I'm standing behind this guy, and I'm demanding we get better recruitment. We have to have better conversations around where to lay the blame lies, or we're never going to fix the problems. We're going to keep going into this cycle. We can't keep pinning everything, and that's my whole point around it. I've no problem sitting there saying that I think, where I think Ange's gone wrong, and, that he probably needs to go at the end, as soon as we're out of the Europa League, 100%. So I can get with that. But what I'm not going to do is start blaming him for everything, because I don't think it serves a purpose moving forward. But big up Levy Towers. Really appreciate the support, my man. Good.
Yeah, it's a bit like Nuno. I mean, Nuno came in. He had 10 games. The fans hounded him out. He wasn't good enough. He's a 2-bit manager. He went on to Saudi and won the league. He's now third in the Premiership. What do the fans actually want?
Just quickly as well, Destiny, I'm not saying stand behind this guy. I'm saying moving forward, there does come a point where we have to identify the problems, because if most people want Iraola, for instance, if we bring in Iraola, what are we going to do when things go tits up? We're going to keep blaming him for everything again. And this is
It's
what I want to
Glasner
be on.
now.
I'm
It's
not saying
Glasner
this is
now,
the guy.
Dave.
I'm not saying Ange is the guy, but I'm just saying, we can't keep scapegoating everything on these guys. We have to start pinpointing the problems within inside the club. Sorry, Drew, what were we saying?
I say it's Glasner now. Areola's not flavour of the month anymore.
Glasner's
Now
gone.
it's
Oh, okay.
Glasner. He's the latest one to
Okay.
lose a 2-0 lead, so that's the guy we want now.
Well, Dave, it also goes back to the mentality of the transfer strategy that we have in place, right? We gotta stop. We gotta stop being feeder club for the rest of the world, right? When you look at the Deloitte Money League and you see that Tottenham Hotspur is a top 10 team when it comes to revenue, and when it comes, we spend resources to develop players, and then when it comes to that point where they're a top 10 player in the world, there's a cap threshold on what you will and what you won't pay on. Is that does that boggle my mind? Right, there has to be a certain set of ambition where you want to keep certain players around for the long haul because these guys are cornerstone pieces that you want to build around, right? So when it comes to a guy like Christian Romero, there should not be a cap on certain players, right? Because if that's the case, if you're just going to cap players out, you might as well just get rid of them and then just start over again. There has to be a mentality shift when it comes to this transfer strategy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, that has to be a recognition within that there has to be a lot better recruitment. You can't bring in Jose Mourinho and give him Joe Roding from the Championship and Ryan Sessegnon and go, make it work. I mean, it's apps. And then we sack Pochettino, we sack him for not making it work. We sack him for not making Joe Roding and Sessegnon work. Players like that, it's absolutely mind-boggling. We can't keep going down this route. But sorry, Soren, I did cut across you rudely, my man.
I just think it's, like you've just been saying, when are we going to actually settle on a manager that we're going to give him everything he wants to do? We can keep blaming the manager. Nuno wasn't good enough. Jose had to go. Poch failed. Conte failed. How many managers are actually going to fail before the blame is actually put in the right place? I mean, we at Spurs TV's just said he's sick of, 16 years. Well, Ange hasn't been here for 16 years. So you're blaming the wrong person, obviously. Now, he made another comment earlier saying, teams are happy to sit back and give us possession because they know we're not going to do fuck all about it.
That
and
is true.
This is the argument. One or two better players in the squad, we will do something with it. That's the point. That how many times have we come out of the game and we've either lost by a goal or we've maybe won by a goal, but we should have battered the teams. We've had 10, 15 chances and not put one away. This is the problem, that we're not putting the ball in the back of the net. We're not breaking these teams down. And it's one or two players away from doing that. Now, I'm not saying Ange is the answer. For all you people that think I'm worshipping Ange, I'm not. I'm backing the manager of my football club, full stop. But I can see with the right players that he could succeed. And it's all right blaming Ange. Every other manager that's been at this club has failed too under these owners. So when are you actually going to open your eyes and see it's not just the manager's fault? It can't be.
No, but you know what? Do you know what, Soren? I actually think most people recognise that. Even, people that are saying get the manager out. I think they recognise we can't keep going down this route. From the majority of fans out that I speak to and stuff, they all say, look, I fully understand we can't keep going down this route. But also, we can't keep this guy in that's lost this many games, to a certain degree. And I can understand the argument. At the end of the day, when we were sacking Conte, people were saying to me, we want to get back to the Tottenham way, style of football matters. We brought in a guy that's trying to play attacking football. For me, I'll take full clarification from this. Style doesn't matter. We just want to win games of football. I actually don't think it matters how. We just want to win games of football. And once we're winning, things will settle down. But big up, guys. Really appreciate it. It's been a good conversation today. We are going to keep it going. John Stokes, member for 38 months. Says, big up, Dave and Jack. Best fan YouTube channel. Look, really appreciate that. A lot of other people don't think so. I don't subscribe to that notion. But for those who do, I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much, my man. Big up, John Stokes. No Johnny today. I know you're a big fan of Johnny. No Johnny today. He's probably at the game or getting ready for his trip to Germany. And then we take this from Blaine, and then I do want to take a minute to plug NordVPN, and then I do want to get into a quick conversation around who people maybe suspect the mole is. But Blaine says, for me, our current style of football reflects where we are at. It might win you a cup because 1 or 2 games it can work, but over a 38-game league season, it doesn't last. Anyway, big up Dave and panel. I mean, look, I think that's a fair sort of comment to make, based on what we've seen this season. I mean, does anyone, first of all, disagree with it, and then does anyone agree with it?
I totally agree with it from the premise of go back 2 years and half our fan base were arguing all they want to do is win a cup because fed up of finishing top 4 because we can't do anything. We only want to win a cup. And now we might win a cup, but we're not going to get top 4. And the same fans are arguing that it's not good enough. So that is absolutely spot on that. We are not a league challenging team. We never really have been. We've always been that cup team. Well, we're in quarterfinals of one cup. We was in the semi-finals of another cup. We were 1 game away from it working, blah, blah, blah. So the problem is the fans that aren't happy are the ones that aren't happy at finishing top 4. But now we're not finishing top 4. They want top 4. And, it's everybody wants the cake and eat it. And that's the problem. That is absolutely spot on from Blaine.
Anyone else want to come in on the back of that?
I mean, the
I
only
have to
thing I
agree
will
with
say,
that.
the only thing I'll say just real quickly is that if it hadn't been for the fact that we were where we were in our season and we basically had to wheel out the same 13, 14 players back to back, Liverpool, Aston Villa, I think there's a chance we'd have stayed in the FA Cup if we'd have been able to have replaced, because that game against Villa it wasn't awful, but we could have done a lot better there. So I don't know, man. I think over a 38 game season, it has been shown to work because he's done it everywhere else he's been. So
And
I
also,
don't know. I'm not sure.
I'll just throw in, I think, this is where I sort of bring it down to squad to a certain degree, or I think squad element comes into it because, Ange hasn't demonstrated that he can do both side by side, right? Last season we done well in the league. We finished 5th, but we didn't sustain anything in the cups. This season we've been sustainable in the cups, but we haven't been sustainable in the league. And that's where I do put it down to the squad being built to, be able to be sustainable across all competitions. There has to be a recognition with the new format in Europe. There's extra games than what there was in previous years. Now with international, there's extra games and stuff like that. So it's more imperative now than ever before to make sure you've got a strong squad to go and compete. And I do think that's the problem. It was the same under Conte, it was the same under Jose. As soon as they make changes, we lose games of football. That can't keep happening. In order to compete on all 4 fronts, we have to be able to rotate. You can't just go, there's 11 players, go and play me 70 games this season. It's not going to happen. You have to be able to dip players in and out and still make it work. And that's where I do bring it down to the caliber of the squad. But I also take your point, Blaine, in terms of the tactics, that at times people, could he be a little bit smarter? Like his whole thing is, I don't want to change. And look, I can understand that to a certain degree. When you've been at other clubs and it's working, you've got evidence in your own eyes that it works and stuff like that. I can understand why you'd be very hesitant to change. But I do think with it being at Tottenham, I do think a manager, it has to be steady progress going forward, in terms of maybe there are certain things that he could change, maybe drop that line back a little bit deeper until they get more understanding of what they're being asked to do, and then slowly increase it up the field as you get more adapted to these tactics, as you get better forward players in the door. Maybe that's what needs to happen, but unfortunately 2 years is gone. The time for patience on that is gone, unfortunately. But I do understand what you're saying. Like, it is concerning that we and look, you would argue it's the same under, Conte and Jose to a certain degree, where, one would suffer because of the other. We can't keep doing this at Tottenham Hotspur. But I do agree with him. Ange hasn't demonstrated, in 2 seasons that he's been able to sustain both side by side. Sorry, Dharma, I think you wanted to come in, my man. Was it you?
It's all right, Dave. It's fine.
Oh, okay, no problem. But big up, Blaine. Really appreciate the support, my man. Hopefully you've enjoyed the conversation off the back of it. Let me know whether you agree or disagree. And we take this from Keith Edwards, and then I need to make a quick plug. Keith Edwards says it's the bleeding goal, defense, and free kicks coaching staff that's crap. Look, there's no doubt about it. For quite some time we've suffered here from defensive set pieces. I'd argue maybe alleviating that a little bit to a degree this year. But the problem is we're having to put everybody in the box to alleviate that. And then when we go to clear it, we don't really have anyone up there to clear it to or try and get a hold of it, which means when we do clear it, it is coming straight back. We shouldn't have to have all 11 men in there to deal with it. But I'd also make the claim, I think we're one of the smaller squads in the Premier League to a certain degree. And that doesn't help either. But big up Keith Edwards. Look, for me, I just think, even moving forward, I just think we need to go and find that out-and-out goal scorer that will deliver on the big games. And I do think, once we bring that guy in, we'll start winning more games of football, which will buy managers more time in the dugout. But big up Keith Edwards. Really appreciate the support, my man. But guys, I do want to take a moment to bring you the very best in the VPN world, and that is NordVPN. And basically, they just want to help you guys, on your travels or be able to watch Spurs games. Look, when there seems to be this promotion thing in the Premier League where, a lot of the times, they're doing 3 p.m. blackouts. So if you're playing on a Saturday, and this isn't for Spurs fans, this is for football fans in general, you can't watch your team. Because the whole idea behind the blackout is to make you go down and watch teams lower down the league playing for absolutely nothing, rather than watch your, Tottenham Hotspur and teams like that. So that's basically the whole idea behind it, and I'm sick of it. And also, sometimes on a Sunday, our game isn't being showed over here in the UK and Ireland because there's other games that they prioritise, which I think is a joke. But there are countries you can bounce your location to that you can get any game you want to watch. And that's exactly what I do using my NordVPN. I've gone and shop for the best deal, the best subscription service that it doesn't matter. When we're playing, I can watch that game. I don't have to rely on the usual TV schedule that comes out. And that's basically the benefits of a VPN. It allows you to bounce your location, allows you to surf the web, and it allows you to get the best deals for you. But not only that, if you're traveling, it helps you be able to watch, the subscriptions that you already do have. Usually when you travel, they put embargoes in other countries because they want to make you pay for more stuff. Don't do that. Just use your VPN, and hey presto, it's on your screen. So that's the benefits of a NordVPN. Not only that, but it comes with premium cybersecurity. They protect you when you're on public Wi-Fi. They protect your data and all that sort of stuff. Also, if you go shopping and surfing the web, all your bank details and everything else you put in are absolutely safe. It's premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee a month. It's basically a peace of mind for the price of a cup of coffee a month. And so if that sounds like your sort of bag, make sure you get over to nordvpn.com. Use the code FLATCAP. There's a 2-year plan, 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not happy with it. But there's also other plans there that if you don't want to commit to the 2-year one, that you can also avail of. Get your hands on to try it out and make sure it stands the test of water that we claim it to be. So make sure you get over and check that out. The link is in the description below, or it is pinned in the chat if you want to get over and check it out. So thank you, NordVPN, for the sponsorship and the partnership. Really appreciate it. But guys, I know the lineups are out in 5 minutes, but I do want to have a quick conversation about the mole, and then I sort of want to revert back. I actually had other conversations today about Ben Davies. Are we starting to witness maybe the end of Ben Davies? Contract's up at the end of the season. Hasn't been any discussions on renewal with Son as well. His contract come the summer, he's got 1 year left on his contract. We haven't solved that situation. What's going to happen there? Matisse tell it's rumored that Tottenham don't want to sanction the money. They want to try and get a better deal. I want to know where people stand on that. But these are all things I might not get to today that I'll probably just carry over into midweek. But guys, Postecoglou has come out. He's very unhappy, that there seems to be a leak in and around the club. Just hours before kickoff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Thursday night, rumours flooded social media that new signing Wilson Odobert had been sent for scans after picking up a hamstring injury in training, which led to basically Ange coming out off the back of it, saying that there was a mole leaking information from within inside the club. First of all, I want to go around the panel. Look, some I have seen have put it down to him using deflection tactics to take the attention and the heat away from everybody at the football club to a certain degree, which if he is doing, you would probably argue protecting your players and that, probably a smart move. But, you know, how much of a big deal is it that we do have someone out there leaking information, you know, or is it a genuine threat or is it just a part of modern day football? But also, has anyone seen anything around the place that has put a suspected name forward and the reasons why behind it? And if any of you guys have a name you want to put forward, please feel free. I'm just interested to know what people make of it. Who wants to come first? Start with you, Dharma. We'll work our way backwards this time.
Look, I think there is something to it. I mean, you look at the Odegaard thing that came out the other day. He had a hamstring injury, and he has to go for a scan, and then suddenly he's on the bench.
But that doesn't mean he didn't go for a scan. But earlier on,
well, hang on a minute,
and he didn't come off the bench either. You know, don't forget, Van de Ven was on the bench earlier on this season.
Yeah, but no, this is my opinion that if you're any way, shape, or form injured, why would you put him on the bench?
But that's what I'm trying to say to you. Van de Ven was on the bench earlier on this season, even though he wasn't fit to play.
I just think there's something to it. I know everyone's going to say he's deflecting, and a load of chat is saying he's deflecting. It's a load of BS, and whatever Ange says, I'm going to say whatever Ange says or does between now and the end of the season is going to be called BS, and it's going to be called it's nonsense. There is something to it. There is a mold. There is somebody leaking stuff to whoever. I have my own suspicions who it might be.
You want to put a name forward? You don't have to. Don't feel pressured. I'm just saying if you want to have a guess.
I know one name, but I can't say. But I would expect be something within the coaching staff. That's what I will say.
Yeah.
I know there is something there. This is not BS. This is genuinely happening. And I know everyone's shaking their head and laughing and saying Dermo's talking shite is normal.
No, they're not. They're not having a go at you whatsoever, lads. They're not. They're just laughing at the whole mole thing in general.
There is something to it. I think there's such a disconnection between the coaching staff and maybe he's pissed so many people off within the coaching staff, within the medical team. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's doing it to get their own back at him if he's pissed them off. So there is something to it. I'm sorry, there is something to it.
Like that Austin Power. Remember Austin Powers was like, money. You know, surprised I haven't seen that. Yeah, surprised I haven't seen that, you know, being banded around the place, yeah. But guys, anyone else want to come in on that? I mean, you know, Steve.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, I'm not going to say names either because I'm still trying to confirm it. But from what I was told, that it's more than one person. It's somebody that's close to Ange Postecoglou in the first team, somebody that's above him but below Levy, and then also a player's agent. And of course, I'm not gonna put anybody on blast because again, I just want to make sure that I have all my ducks in a row before I say something and it turns out to be something completely else. I also think that would be very irresponsible of me to do. But that's the thing. It's like there's this old saying where there's smoke, there's fire. There's definitely smoke surrounding this as well too, and it's unfortunate too because for leaks coming out, it definitely undercuts Ange Postecoglou and what he's trying to do. For sure, that's funny, Rebecca Pardee.
That's who. Do you know what? That's who I was about to say. I was about to say to Rebecca, "Damn, it come out. Damn."
That's pretty good. Said it's chirpy either. Imagine who is chirpy. But look, it's not good for Tottenham. You know, the fact that news is getting out, it does help the opposition manager and stuff like that, Darren.
Well, sorry. I was going to say it gives the impression of chaos around the team, right? So everybody wonders why Tottenham has become a joke over the course of the last year, and it's like things like this that just add fuel to the fire.
Yep, absolutely.
This is not something new. Basically every team has got a mole. Now we know there's a mole within the club, Dave, because me and you have had discussions about a certain person in the community that's always telling us he knows somebody in the club that's giving him this information. So we know there is somebody giving out information. I don't know who it is. you might have more of an idea than me, but look, I think it's stupid. I don't think, I think it would be nice to have a team that doesn't leak all the problems and things like that, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Basuma's in the score, I suppose. Yeah. But look, does it really matter? I mean, the amount of times that this mole or, in the know person or whatever it is has got things wrong, has got half truths, has not given the full information out, has got some bits, what difference does it really make? I mean, personally, I think Angie's done the right thing by saying it. I know people disagree and think it's nothing, but it's like whistleblowers, things like that. If you're giving information out and you shouldn't be, I'm glad that the club are now coming out and saying we're on to you. And if depending who it is, you could be about to lose your job.
Yeah.
Well, if you're signing contracts that say you're not going to give information out or whatever, well, you've broken your contract. It's as simple as that. Somebody's obviously giving the information out, and it'll come out at some point, and that person will no longer have a job within Tottenham Hotspur. Will it make a shit of a difference? No.
Correct me if
Somebody
I'm
else
wrong.
will do it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that was part of getting David Pleat away from the football club, as they suspected, some of it was him leaking information. It'd be interesting. I mean, Drew, Drew, I got that one right. Yeah. Drew, anything else you want to say on it, my man, before we get into the lineup?
No, not really. I don't.
No?
I was quite. When did the rat become a mole? I guess that's the only question I've got. I always find it ironic as well. I mean, I know some moles have eyes, but some moles don't have eyes. So I just find it funny that a mole is leaking information when some moles are blind. I don't know.
Honestly,
Maybe I'm just thinking too deep about it on
yeah.
other levels, man. It really am. Just next.
Do you know what? Honestly, for me, I'd be very surprised if it's just one person. There's so many people that work in and around that football club, and stuff like that. I think I'd be very surprised if it's just one person. I think in modern day football now, things get leaked. You know what I mean? I think it's very hard to pinpoint who it is because there's so many people that work in the football club. I think I'd be very surprised if it's just one person. I'd be very, very surprised. But look, let's get into the lineup. Let's have a
just quickly, Dave.
Yeah.
You know the most obvious person it's going to be somebody in the
Mason.
medical team, because they're with the players all the time.
Fair point. Yeah, or it could be someone off the training pitch either. It's someone that's in and around, on a day-to-day involvement. That's for sure. But I'd be very surprised if it's just one person. I'd be very, very surprised. But guys, let's get into the lineup. Let's get people's thoughts on the lineup in the chat. Vicario in goals. Archie Gray comes in at right back. Romero and Davies in at centre back, with Spence in at left back. Basuma, Sarr and Madison in the midfield, with Tell off the left, Solanke through the middle, and Johnson off the right-hand side. And then on the bench, we've got Kinski, Van de Ven, Pedro Porro, Destiny Udogie, Bentancur, Bergval, Kulu. Come on, he's back on the bench. My guy Kulu Sexy, along with Mikey Moore and Big Richarlison. I would expect probably Richarlison to get on for Solanke in around 60, 70 minutes. I'd be surprised if Solanke plays as long as he did the other night. Same with James Madison. I would expect, there to be some players pulled off early enough tonight. But look, let's go up through the panel. Let's get their thoughts on the lineup and let's get their score prediction. I mean, Drew, we'll start with you. I mean, what's your thoughts on the lineup and what's your score prediction, my man?
I hate Gray at right back. I hate it with a passion, but it is what it is, I guess.
Why is he not giving him his chance in CDM? Because, this again is where fans are getting pissed off, Drew, because everyone wants to see him in this CDM role. Prime opportunities like today to give him the opportunity, and he continues not to.
Yeah, especially with Porro and Udogie in the squad as well. It just doesn't, it doesn't really make sense to me. This is why I can completely understand why people get frustrated. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm not oblivious to it. I'm frustrated. I quite like the idea of seeing Tell up front. or at least, you know, getting a start on the wing, not necessarily up top, but I quite like being able to see him because he's really only had a few minutes here and there, right? I'm glad Maddison's in there because I think Maddison does better when he's playing continually. I mean, I know there's this obviously the joke about him getting hooked after 70, 80 minutes, but most games. But I just think rather than sitting him out this one, I think it's good to give him a few
It's not
minutes and then hook.
if he doesn't
Right,
play, right?
Exactly,
Especially
exactly.
with Bruno's injury.
And I would expect the Basuma and Sarr thing. I'd quite like to see a bit more of a double, you know, a double pivot with Maddison kind of pulling the strings as a bit more of a natural number 10. And I think you might see that today. I've got a feeling we might try and play a little bit more on the counter attack. So yeah, I'm not. As I say, the only thing I really don't like is Gray at right back, but at least he's getting minutes on the pitch, so it is what it is. I can't complain too much, right? 1 minute you're complaining the kids aren't playing, then you're complaining, oh well now they're playing, but now they're playing in the wrong position. Like he's 18, 19 years old. Whatever minutes he gets at the moment in this point of his career is just a benefit to him and his future career. So I'm not, you know. I'm disappointed because I would like to see him in midfield, but I can't complain too much about it, man.
Do you know what? You're absolutely spot on with that. And do you know what? I think you're absolutely fair with that. I think, look, disappointed that we're not getting to see him in the six, but, you make a great point there that minutes benefit this kid. It doesn't really matter where, he's proven that he can play across that back line. And at least we're getting minutes and experience into him. I think that's absolutely spot on. I think that is a good point to make. No, Mikey Moore on the bench. I'm a little bit disappointed in that. Look, Postecoglou sort of spoke the other day, or in the pre-match press conference about maybe Mikey Moore. And look, he sort of just said it's like, he's still taking time to develop into his body and stuff like that. But again, I think a game like today is an ideal opportunity to give him a start and see what he can produce. He hasn't done that. I think maybe another opportunity missed to a certain degree. I think right now, with the Premier League, sort of fading out, I do think there is an opportunity to give someone like Mikey Moore, because honestly, I don't think we're worse when Mikey Moore comes in. I don't think the quality drops when Mikey Moore comes in, which then for me, I do think he should get that opportunity. But look, hopefully he gets that off the bench today.
The one thing I will say, Dave, just quickly, so before everyone else, I'm pretty sure there was a Twitter. I'm not really a big Twitter X person. I can't stand it. But there were a couple of what are they called, ITKs, where, and I think one of them is a Lily White something, a Lily White Lane. I don't know.
Lily White Rose. He's absolutely brilliant with the academy.
Right, he took a picture, and it might still be on his feed. It was a couple of weeks ago. It was a picture of him and Mikey Moore, where he bumped into Mikey Moore and a few of the other academy players at a bash somewhere. And he basically, the tagline was, heard it from the horse's mouth, he's recovering from a knock. So if that's true, I think, you've got to have an understanding that the kid's only 17 years old. And if he has been recovering, if he has got some sort of knock, if he's still got something, with that illness that he had, I think you just got to treat this kid with kid gloves. And I think the problem is if we're relying on a 17-year-old to pull us out of trouble, then we got bigger issues, right?
Not relying
on, that's not aimed at you. That's not aimed at you. That's just a general comment.
No, I know. But look, interesting on that. And by the way, since we're on Mikey Moore, his best friend Callum Osesi signed that 3-year deal there last week. We fended off the interest of PSG, Dortmund, teams like that to get him to sign on the dotted line. And look, I think, it's good that we're getting these players to sign on the dotted line. In years gone by, they were sort of leaving this club. But another conversation maybe I did want to have today, we'll get on to next time, is, you look at the success of the academy down the last 3 years. We've won 3 Premier League Cups, and we've also won the Under-21 League. But that doesn't seem to be replicating itself in terms of getting opportunities in the first team. We do prefer to give players that we buy, especially in and around the same age, the opportunity. And I do want to speak about the pathway moving forward, but we'll do that another day, because you can't have that much success underage and not see some of these guys filter into the first team. I think it's absolutely criminal. But Soren, down to you. I mean, let's get your thoughts on the lineup and let's get your score prediction. I think Spotlight on Spurs says here, does this mean Porro and Udogie are first choice fullbacks now that the two of them are rested for this game? I think it's a good question.
Yeah, probably are. I mean, the other spanner in the works, will Gray play centre back and put Davis left back? You know, that's a possibility because I think he does like putting Gray in centre back. But I'm same as Drew's just said, you know, it's such a shame. Personally, I'd have played Gray instead of Basuma, and just played one of. I'd have probably played Porro today because he hasn't played a massive amount over the last few weeks. You know, there's no reason he can't still play again. But I don't. I mean, in there, Basuma, I just don't trust at all.
No.
I think today would have been the perfect game to put Gray in that holding six and just let Spence and Maddison have the run. Same as everybody else. Love to see Mikey Moore get some minutes today. Personally, I think if I was in charge, let Johnson play the first half and then bring Mikey Moore on and put him on the right. He's had a couple of quieter games when he has managed to get on, but you know, it's another player that needs those minutes under his belt. But other than that, I think it's quite a team that you expect. I think we'll go out and win, and I'm going to say my usual 3-1.
3-1. 3-1. Interesting. You know, look, I'll take it now. Stop your hands off now. I'd love just nothing more than a victory today. Lazy 8, big up Nick says, where's Dane Scarlett? Yeah, I'm not quite sure on that one, to be quite honest with you. I think today would have been an ideal opportunity to give someone like Dane Scarlett his opportunity, you know, his opportunity today. I think, look, I'll be honest, I think he's done more. I think he's shown more his minutes than what someone like Matisse Tell has. That's just my opinion on it. You know, so I don't understand why he's not even on the bench to get minutes today. You know, even if Richarlison ain't fit enough to start, why can't you start someone like Dane Scarlett up front? I think he's shown, you know, off the bench against Ipswich, the goal we needed in the Europa League and stuff like that. I think he does deserve his opportunity, Nick. I think you're absolutely spot on there. Don't know where Drew's gone. Don't know where he's gone. Hopefully I haven't pissed him off. Dermot, on to you, my man. I mean, what's your thoughts on the lineup and your score prediction? You're on mute, Dermot.
I'm very underwhelmed by this lineup. Very underwhelmed, especially with Basuma in midfield. Lord God, what's Ange thinking playing that idiot? Look, I did go for Tell on the wing. I did put Ida Bart on the other one, but he's not. Him and Sonny not even on the bench either. I think it will be great centre back. I agree with Soren and Davis at left back, which I did put in. I
don't think it will be. You know, I'd be surprised.
Well, didn't Gray play fullback in one of the preseason games?
He played fullback before he got his shot in. The only reason why they put him in at centre back is because we didn't have any central defenders.
Yeah, but I think it was against QPR, wasn't it? He played right back or left back. I can't remember.
He played fullback in some of the Europa League games earlier on, if people remember as well.
Yeah. Look, I'm just a bit underwhelmed by this lineup. It's a bit of a mixed match, but look, I think we can win. I'm going for a 4-0. I always do. I'm never going to change now. Once delusional, always delusional. So why disappoint the people with them thinking that I completely lost my marbles? I have years ago. But yeah, that's sort of, it's a very underwhelming sort of lineup. But look, if we get a win, then Ange is a masterclass. If we get a lose, then the knives are going to be out of him again. Why did you not pick a stronger lineup? He can do right, no wrong. He's damned if he does, and then damned if he doesn't. So as long as we don't have the same mending as we did last year when we lost in the 90th minute, I'll be happy. So yeah, I'm going for my usual 4-0. It's bound to happen sometime.
Look, I know some people may find the lineup a little bit underwhelming, but I would say we all expected to see something like this today. Let's not kid ourselves coming into this.
I didn't expect as many changes though, Dave. To be fair.
But like if the likes of Son and players that are a majority of the players that are going to play Thursday night, if they play today and we went in there and put a lackluster performance Thursday night, they'd all go mad that you didn't rotate today. I just think, we all expected to see rotations made today, in terms of the weekend. Don't get me wrong. I can understand where people get underwhelmed by the likes of Basuma in the team and all. They sort of already know what to expect from them. But at the end of the day, we did expect to see a lineup similar. To be honest, I expected to see more rotation. I didn't expect to see Solanke in there, Johnson in there. I didn't. I expected to see more, to be honest with you. So, look, let's wait and see what happens. Look, it'd be great if we, like Dark Song G says, and like you said there, Ross, well, if we could beat Wolves with this team, I think it's a huge positive today. Absolutely spot on, Dark Song G. But look, I just think winning breeds confidence anyway. You win, all of a sudden they go in Thursday night, believing that they can turn them over. I think it's important that we try and get 3 points on the board today. But like I keep reiterating, it is not easy at all against Wolves. They always give us tough games. Even when I went up over there for my first game in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we got beat 2-0. I was fucking livid. So they do give us tough games. And Dark Sungji also says no Korean derby today. Sad because no Son on the bench. Yeah, no Son is Hwang on the bench for Wolves. Let me know. Yeah, he's a tidy little goal scorer. That guy, he scores goals. And this was the famous one where you had that bird in the stand wearing the half Wolves or half Tottenham shirt she made herself. If anyone remembers that as well. But yeah, a big day. They do know over there where Dark Sung Ji lives in Korea, they do call this the Korean derby because of Hwang and Son. No Son at all today. Look, I'm not surprised. I'll be honest, Dark Sung Ji. I actually think Son could do with the rest, heading into Thursday. Give him a day off. Let him just sort of go and recuperate and stuff like that, and let the body heal itself, because we need him Thursday night. In years gone by in Europe, even when we've had Harry Kane and he was out injured, he was the one that stepped up. We need him Thursday night. So I think the right decision. I just hope it's not an injury. That's just my biggest concern. As long as it's not an injury, I think, I'm okay with him being out of the squad today in general. And then last
in the background, Dave.
Huh?
Drew wants to come back in.
Oh, there he is. Oh, yeah. I see him. Big up, Drew.
I
thought we pissed you off, lad. I thought
No. No, my computer decided to crash because I was looking up some stats on transfer market. I think I need to.
Are you sure that's what you were looking up, Drew? You sure that's what you were
honestly,
looking up? You sure you weren't looking something else up?
This Drew, spends his time going deep into all these stats and everything else, which I think, look, rightly so. It means you can have a really good opinion on no matter what you're asked and stuff like that. But, the computer's crashing because of all these spreadsheets he has open and stuff like that. But no, fair play to him. Look, I think more fans should, look into all this if you get an opportunity, to be quite honest. But last but not least, down to you, Steve. What's your thoughts on the lineup and what's your score prediction?
Absolutely. I expected some rotation. I had that rotation at 3 players. I was expecting to see a lot of these regulars that we're going to see on Thursday as well, too, just from a continuity standpoint, and the fact that Ange still has to put out a strong roster to get these 3 points. So up in the front line, I was expecting Solanke and Johnson to be in it, just from a sheer numbers point. We don't know how many minutes that Richarlison has in his legs, and so just from a sheer standpoint, and just from a sharpness standpoint, I was expecting Solanke to play a bulk of it. I did expect Matisse Tell to get run today, and of course Brendan Johnson, just because he's a relegation merchant. These are the type of clubs where all of a sudden Johnson will pop in a goal or two. One of the surprising ones for me was Yves Basuma, because this dude has not played in a while, and so you question whether or not his sharpness is going to be effective.
Shot window, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, absolutely. I did expect Madison and Sarr to be in there, but I did expect Betancourt just because of a continuity standpoint. And I think him and Johnson have kind of developed a little bit of chemistry in the last couple of weeks. And I did expect Archie Gray and Dejan Kulusevski to come off the bench and get a large run ahead of Thursday as well, too. The one thing that was surprising was I was expecting Mikey Van de Ven in the lineup today, just because there has to have that continued chemistry with Romero. But there's also a large rotation at half or even at the 60-minute mark where you can still give them rest ahead of it. Archie Gray at right back is kind of a head scratcher. Again, we've only seen him in clips off the bench over the last couple of weeks, and so again, it's almost like the Basuma situation where you're questioning whether or not he's going to have the sharpness to step in and play that. And I was expecting Pedro Porter to get some run today too. But again, in totality, this lineup is good enough to get a result. But I'm going to stick with my prediction, and that's been over the last couple of days, because Wolves are the type of team that just seem to have our number. I think in the last 20 we've only won 5. They're coming off 3 in a row, and I think the last time we beat Wolves was in 2022. If I'm wrong, I believe that's right. So I got this one as a 1-1 draw.
Interesting. Look, I just hope we get a result today. I'm just sick of losing games of football. Just do not lose. That's all I ask today. Do not lose. But everybody, I do have the boys' channel links in the chat there. I'll bring them up now in a second. But please make sure you get over and subscribe to them. We'll take this from Dark Sun G says, Wolves is our curse now. Hwang and Cunha on the bench. Do you know what? I'm surprised that Cunha's on the bench, to be quite honest with you. Hwang as well. You know, they're a good source of goals for Wolves in general. But look, the Wolves lineup that we're facing today is Jose Sa in goals, Gomez at centre-back along with Agbadu, and Matt Doherty playing the right side of a back three, it looks like. If we do not expose this fucker today, I'll go mad. Surely Dom Solanke, if I'm Dom Solanke, peel onto him. You're going to get joy all game long. Semedo at right wing-back, Andre and Gomez in the midfield with Aït-Nouri at left wing-back, and you've got Bellegarde, Munisi and Strand Larsen up front. That Strand Larsen scored against us last time. Actually, he's got good movement off the ball. Strand Larsen does need to stay switched on with that. So that's the Wolves lineup that we will be facing today, Dark Sun G. Hopefully we can get the points. Like you said, you know, Wolves do give us a good game and have notoriously given us a good game down the years as well. So big up, Dark Sun G. Big game today. But guys, please make sure you get over and you're checking out Drew's channel over there with Adrian at Spurs Die Hard, Tottenham Till I Die. Drew does an absolute fantastic show on a Friday. I frequent it myself, you know, when I have time to get on and stuff. You see the likes of Steve over there and, you know, loads of others. So make sure you get over there, subscribe to Drew's channel over there with Adrian at Spurs Die Hard, Tottenham Till I Die. Also, Dermot's link here is in the chat as well, THFC. Maybe there needs to be a change here somewhere. You know, they're very similar names here.
Well, we did have it first. I will say we did come up with it first, and suddenly I ain't changing my name, my YouTube channel name.
No, but I'm messing. But guys, make sure you get across, check out Dermot's channel and make sure you smash the subscribe there. And then also make sure you get across to Steve's channel as well, Stateside Footy. Make sure you get over and check that out. Again, I was on there yesterday. Me, him, and Dharma had a brilliant conversation. And again, does a good show on a Saturday morning, you know, if anybody's looking for it. So make sure you get over there and check out the channels. Because at the end of the day, you know, I don't have the money to pay these guys for their time. They give it up for free to come here and create these discussions, create these conversations and stuff like that, building up the games. It's all off their own back, giving up their free time. So I would love if people could get across and show these guys the love, you know, to their channels, and we can repay it that way. But guys, that's it from us. You know,
Dave, can I say one last thing? I was going to try and be the better man, and I was going to let this go, and I wasn't going to say anything. But you know what? I'm not that guy. I'm not a better man. Destiny 5.
What did I miss?
Destiny 5. Big up. I'm not. It's not just you. It could have been anybody. But this is why I can't take things seriously sometimes, right? I mentioned that thing about Mikey Moore, and he comes back with Mikey Moore's been playing for the under-21s for the last 4 weeks. Lies. So I go and have a look on Transfermarkt because I'm like, well, hang on a minute. I feel like I'd know about that. And I go on Transfermarkt. He played on 3-14. Aside from that, he hasn't played in like 16 weeks for the under-21s. So this is why I just pay no attention to people in the chat sometimes, because they just come up with absolute waffle. But big up. I hope you enjoy the game.
Well, there we are. Destiny, let us know, you know, what your thoughts are on that. I think it's hard to argue, though. You know, I think, Drew, you know, and
I mean, I'm just going by what the website says. Do you know what I mean? I'm just going by what the website says that has all this information on versus somebody that just screams lies in the chat. So, yeah, but big up. It's all good. It's all in fun. It's all just banter. It's all just banter.
I think with Mikey Moore, I think we forget that there was something in and around the Christmas period, you know, with him. I don't think we were told the whole story around it. And, you know, I think, look, maybe we'll see what comes of it. But I do think there's more reasons.
I hope we see him today. I hope we see him today for 20
really
minutes.
So.
It would be great. So, yeah,
I think
that's the only thing that matters. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think he deserves it for sure. For sure. Look, everyone knows I love an academy kid coming through, and I just look. There's more than Mikey Moore. I'd love to see Donnelly get an opportunity next year. You look at the guy that scored 2 goals for the under-17s the other night. Williams Barnett, is it?
Right,
Scored 2
right.
goals the other night. Another player coming through
Yeah.
with quality as well. So there's players there. It's just whether we're going to give them the opportunity. Catman Jess, remember, for 44 months since big up everyone going 3-1 Spurs win today. Come on, you Spurs. Big up Catman Jess. Jesus, the longevity of that support is absolutely insane. I really do appreciate it, man. It's nearly, 3 years? I'm bad at maths, so probably eating nearly into 4 years. Really appreciate
That's
that.
4 months off of 4 years, right?
Fucking
Jesus.
Yeah.
hell. Jesus Christ. Big up,
Yeah.
Cat Man. Really appreciate the
Big
support. That's
up.
absolutely unbelievable. But look, hopefully we can get the win today. That's what we're all here for. Look, no one wants us to lose games. We just want to win games of football. We're sick of losing. Hopefully we can get the job done and we can all go and enjoy our Sundays and then heading into the big game on Thursday. But we are away from home. Like I've said, we've got massive problems away from home. I think this is the 15th time this season we've had a Thursday to Sunday turnaround. Eventually that's also going to take its toll. But look, let's wait and see how we get on today. Wolves ain't going to be easy, but I do think the lineup's good enough, to go and get all 3 points. But guys, that's it from myself, Soren, Drew, Dermot, and Steve. I want to say a massive thank you to the guys on the panel for giving up their time. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed today's show as well, I have to say. I want to say a massive thank you to all of you guys at home as well. These would be absolutely nothing if you weren't in there engaging with us, giving your opinions. And look, I don't care if you disagree with me, as long as you give your reason why, which you do. So I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you very, very much. Run the likes up on your way out if you do enjoy the show. And lastly, I want to say a massive thank you to the people who have gone the extra mile. All the support is really, really appreciated. Faz Radfar, Wembley 1, Fazzy Radfar again, Q7, Donovan Oosterreicher, Levy Towers, John Stokes, Blaine Devlin, Keith Edwards, and also Dark Sung G and Catman Jess as well. I want to say a massive thank you to all you guys for the extra support today. Guys, I'll be back here in about 15 minutes' time for the watch along. Hopefully we can get the job done. We're going into the Wolves den. Hopefully we come out with all 3 points. As always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
You Spurs. Hulu forever.
Let's tame the Wolves. Come